Hold on, press me right button. There we are.
Hello, today I have the lovely Raven with me. Hello, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Raven McAllan. I write a variety of romance stories from Regency to the present day. Some are hot, some are not, some are rom-com, some are paranormal, gay, BDSM, you name it, whatever mood I'm in, depends on what I'm going to write. Although at the moment it tends to be more Regency, a little bit paranormally maybe, and also some rom-com, slow chick flick, that sort of stuff.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a writer?
Well, when I was about 7, I won the Cadbury's Where Does Chocolate Come From competition, where you had to write a story about where chocolate comes from, and the prize was chocolate. And I thought, oh, that's a bit of all right, you know. And first year I got all the chocolate. Second year the teacher divvied it out between all the class, and I only got one bit. And I thought, no, that's not how it works. I presume she was my publisher. But so yes, but when I got to high school, it was sort of knocked out to me. It was a case of, you know, you're writing too flowery, you want factual, you know, you're not doing this properly. So for years I didn't think about it. And then when my children were young, I started making stories up for them. Rumple Rabbit was a very good one. That got my son to tidy his bedroom, because Rumple Rabbit didn't get any nice presents because he had a messy bedroom. And George the Whatever Bird got nothing for dinner, because every time his mummy said, what would you like to eat? He said, whatever. So she decided whatever was dinner. So that they were quite good. But yeah, made stories up. And then I suppose everything went by for years, didn't get anything done. The first computer we got was, do you remember one of the ones we had to keep putting all the discs in and out every time you wanted to do something? And I wrote a story and sent it off to Mills and Boon. Well, that was a load of rubbish because I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, I tried. Nothing happened after that until about 10 or 11 years ago, and I was off work sick. Mills and Boon got a competition on Facebook. So you think you can write, you had to send a chapter in, which was the biggest load of rubbish you've ever read. But I got in with other people who were learning to write, and we all encouraged each other to try and see what we could do. When I started, I wrote as I thought I should write, not as I could write, and that's totally different. You know, you have to accept the fact that, you know, you might think you ought to write like this, but if that's not the way you write, it's not going to read properly, and it didn't. I had to discover what my voice was. And we were chatting one day on Facebook, and we were all asking each other what we were going to write, and I turned around and said, I'm going to write a Regency story. And they said, what about? And I said, 2 women and a man, and thought, pardon, 2 women and a man, what am I going to do? And they dared me to write it, and I wrote it. We all edited it and took out all the errors, and I sent it off, and it got accepted within a couple of days, and that's how I started. But I was so lucky that that first publisher, which was Breathless Press, which no longer exists, let me play around with what I could write. So they didn't say, you've written a Regency story, you've got to stick to Regency. So I wrote gay stories, I wrote paranormal, I wrote contemporary, I wrote some more historical, I wrote for their other branch, I wrote young adult books. So it got me a chance to see what I was happiest writing. And I suppose now, 10 years later, it's Regency or it's rom-com, but then every so often I think I'll just write such and such. I'll write a hot story, or I'll write something about smugglers. It just depends what sort of mood I'm in, and I think I'm very lucky that I could do that. You know, I'm not stuck to just one thing. Oh, hello, sweetie.
It's never far away. She always likes to come and butt in, don't you, girl? Hello,
and you're going to do the interview.
Yeah, she usually does. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's where I am today. So like just over 10 years later. So I think I'm incredibly lucky that I've been able to discover what my voice is, I suppose, because I've got more than one, because I write as Raven, I write as Kira Fair, and I write as Katie Lilly. So I've got the chance to dip between the different genres or subgenres depending on what sort of mood I'm in. So yeah, it's excellent.
And what drew you to romance initially?
I like a happy ever after. I know it sounds daft, but I think people say it's dead easy. It's not. I mean, I have so much admiration for people who write for Mills and Boon, because it's a really difficult, you know, it's such a narrow parameter that you're allowed to write in for them. And I like lots of people in my stories. I like to know what, you know, why this has happened and who's over there. So I don't write tight enough for that. Mine, although I keep to the story of his and hers, I like to know a bit more about everything that's going around them, I suppose. And I just like romance. I just think without romance, you know, it'd be a pretty sad place, wouldn't it, really? And I don't like reading nasties, so I certainly couldn't write a nasty. You know, so yeah. That's probably why. I mean, I'll read a Vera, but I couldn't write a Vera, if you know what I mean. You know, I enjoy that. And there's books that you enjoy, you know, you can't write. And I just know that I think, you know, this was this was the thing for me. Yeah.
How many books have you written now? Do you know the exact number?
100 and something. I don't know the exact number. It's 100 and something. They're not all long. I mean, they vary from, you know, like short stories of about 15 to 20,000, because Evernight Publishing, who I also write for, do romance on the go. And the idea is that that's the book that you can get on the tube or the, you know, the subway or whatever, and read it, and you finish it by the time you get to work. So I've written quite a lot of those. They're not, I think I've got over a dozen out in print now, so they're definitely longer ones to get them into print, but mainly ebooks, because that's the way things are going these days. You know, people are more ebook, because you can produce a shorter ebook easier. You know, it's more feasible for a publisher, I suppose. But they're not all in print now, because most of the ones from Bethless Press are out of print. And although I have updated some of them, I haven't updated a lot of them. But I think at the last count it was 100 and something. I think I got stuck at 100. So.
Wow.
Yeah, but then for a lot of the time, my husband was at work, I was at home. You know, if he was away for work, it was something to do, especially in Scotland in the winter, where you shut your curtains at 3 o'clock and you don't open again till 10 o'clock the next morning. You know, it kept me busy, out of mischief.
Does your husband know what you write?
Oh yeah,
has he ever been interested in reading them all?
He's read a couple of them. It's not really, romance is not really his thing, but I have sort of said to him, can you check this bit for me? Can you check that bit for me? Talking about have you writing, quite a few years ago, Paul was away for work, and I was writing a love scene. I was writing a sex scene, and I couldn't work out. I'm sitting there thinking, but it's all like this. So Doris O'Connor, the late Doris O'Connor, who wrote a lot of books for Evernight, really fantastic author, who's my best mate, and I'm honorary grandparent to all of her kids. She died a few years ago from cancer, but I said to her, do you think this makes sense? We were on Skype or something. About half an hour later, my phone rang. I pick it up. It's her husband. He says, yes, it does. Thank you very much. And that was, he actually said that at her funeral, because it was just something that was so part of, you know, some of the conversations we used to have was so funny. But I thought that one took the biscuit. That was really quite good. And I will say to Paul, what word am I looking for? Or does this make sense? And he'd say, no, or you're looking for X, you know. But if I said to him, would you read it? He would, but he's not a romance reader, you know. So he reads some of them, yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah, bless him.
At least you're not a prime
comfort zone.
Probably an impossible question to answer, but do you have a favourite character out of all those books?
Yes, I do actually. I think that there's in one of the Domissima series, which is for Evernight, there's a guy called Athel, and I don't know where this is a guy who's lives with it. It's him and his partner falling out, and eventually the two blokes get together again. But I loved writing him, because I wrote him, and then a friend of mine and his husband, where we used to live, I said, look, would you please read this story and tell me if it makes sense? And he says, it makes excellent sense, it's totally right. And I think that was one of the nicest things that ever happened, you know, the fact that he could actually say, yes, it does make sense, and yes, it is right. And the other one I like is in the Katie Lilly series, the Devon trilogy, the middle one, which is called Second Chances for Lottie Bott. I just love Lottie, because she's such a horrible person at the beginning of the book, up her own self. By the end of it, I think she's such a nice person, and I just loved her. I loved writing her, because trying to get behind the way she's looked at this bloke's bum, but she thought she shouldn't really be looking at it, because nice people don't do that sort of thing. And it's just fun to write. I think you fall in love with whatever book you're writing, because if you don't, why are you writing it? And you have favourite books. I mean, I think one of the favourite ones I ever wrote was a book called Master, and I wrote that quite a few years ago. And people love it or hate it. There's no middle ground. You either find somebody that absolutely loves this book, you find somebody that absolutely hates that book, which I find quite interesting. Just different opinions, because you can't please all the people all of the time. So you just have to. One of the things you have to learn is get a thick skin, and accept that you're either going to try and write and please everybody, or you won't, or you write to please yourself and hope it pleases other people. And sometimes it does. And I think that's the main thing, yeah.
Is there any of your books you'd like to be a character in yourself?
I'm writing one at the moment where she's a female smuggler in the Regency. I wouldn't mind that, actually. That sounds quite good. There's an awful lot I wouldn't want to be. I don't know. I fall in love with whoever I'm writing, I think, really, because, you know, I don't care what anybody says. Well, for me, every heroine has a little bit of me, and you can't not have, because you're thinking, now, how would I think in this situation? How would she think in this situation? And I'm trying to sort of mix the two bits together. And it's like, if somebody says to me, is that real? Generally speaking, I can say, well, yes, apart from the fact when somebody asked me for all my Regency books, had I done everything that was in them? And I went, not quite, no, I wasn't born 200 years ago. but generally speaking, the facts are right. You know, if I've put a fact in it, it's because it's right. And when a long while ago, somebody tried to pull me up because I put a 5-star hotel that had self-catering in it, and I got told in uncertain terms, no 5-star hotel would have self-catering. So I sent them the link to the one I based it on.
I love it when you can do that.
Yeah, I think there's some things that we don't know what's happened 200 years ago. Of course you don't. You've got to guess at some of the stuff. But if you can verify something, well, you do it. Well, I do anyway. You know. So if somebody says to me, "Is there really a path from X to Y?" and I can say, "Yes, there is, because I've walked it," or whatever. Or, you know, is that hotel really on that street in Hong Kong or wherever? Yes, it is, because I've walked past it. I've been in it. You know, I've stopped in it. Or get your facts right when you can, which is why I like writing about places I've been to. Because then at least I know that that specific fact is right at the time that I was there. You know, I mean, 5 years later it might not be, but it was at the time I was there, or the time I was writing the book. You know, and if someone tells me a book I wrote 8 years ago, something's not true anymore, well, I'm sorry, but it was when the book came out. You know, that's all you can do. But I never mind somebody telling me I've got something wrong, because we're all human and it's very easy to get things wrong, isn't it? You know, and it's like how you spell things as well. You know, different people spell it, and I think one of the classic ones was, excuse me, the McAllan whiskey, for instance, which is a play on my name. And a long while ago, and it's a very long while ago, and I don't think the editor still edits anymore, so she won't know who I'm talking about anyway. And if she does, I'm sorry, but you were wrong. She said me a thing, and I put whiskey, WHISKY, which is Scottish whiskey. And she put an E in it, and I said, there is no E in whiskey. If it's Scotch, there is if it's bourbon, or if it's rye, there is if it's Irish, but there isn't if it's Scots. If you don't put an E in, a certain nationality of viewers will think that of readers will think that it's a typo. And I said, and if I put an E in it, I will be divorced, because my husband will think I don't know how to spell the whiskey. Oh, and it's a massive bugbear of mine. It's a standing joke now. I say, whiskey, no E, no E, no E, you know. And somebody argued the toss with me one day and told me that there was no such thing as whiskey without an E, because about 50 other people come, yes, there is. And it's silly, but it's a real bugbear. You know, there is no E in Scotch. Sorry, rant over. Here endeth the lesson of Joanna on whiskey.
I can tell you're totally over it anyway, that, you know, it doesn't bother you at all anymore.
I got to a point where I actually would write anything rather than malt whiskey. I'd put a single malt, or I'd put you know, a glass of Scotch, but I wouldn't actually write the word whiskey in case somebody jumped down my throat.
Oh yeah, I know, people are so sensitive, aren't they, honestly?
I think it's what you're used to. And of course, if you live in a country where it's got an E in, you automatically put whiskey with an E. I at that point lived in Scotland, which was and I was talking about Scotch, so I didn't put an E in it. You know, it's just. But it is funny how people. I mean, I laugh about it when I say it, but some people get so riled up. You're thinking blood pressure, calm down.
Yeah, bless them.
But it's fun, and yeah, I mean, as I say, I have people joke about it now. Somebody would say, I've just had a glass now, Raven, don't get upset, but it is whiskey with an E in it, you know. And I said, that's okay. And we all take it in the manner it's meant. It's a bit of humour, you know. It's just
Do you hide any secret jokes or messages in your book that only a few people will understand?
No, but I do use slang. I think, you know, you've got me there. I don't know that I maybe do without even realise I'm doing it, you know, because I mean, living in Scotland, I was born in England, but I was born in a place called Corby in Northamptonshire, which is more Scottish than Scotland. And when I was growing up, it's something like 93% Scots there. People had come down to work the steelworks when the steelworks first opened. And I think it was only about 2 or 3% English, of who I was one. My mum's a Cockney, my dad was from the next town. But I grew up speaking with quite a Scottish accent, because obviously all my mates were Scottish, so can I have a wee bit of this McAllan and what have you, you know. So when we moved to Scotland, my husband would sort of say to me, pardon? but I'd gone back, I mean, admittedly I'd gone back to being an 18-year-old, but I'd gone back to, everything was just so natural to me, because it was just that I was talking with a Scottish accent, because I've been Scottish for so long, you know, and I do pick up accents really easily. So I might put wee bits in. You see, you've got a little bit in. So I suppose every so often there will be something that somebody will say, I know what she's talking about. And occasionally I'll put something in that might relate to one of the other books. I can't think offhand, but I know there was something I read the other day, and I thought anybody who's read this series will get the reference to that. And it's not sort of trying to take a dig at, oh, this is what some people know, this is what others don't. It's just to think, because that's just what comes to mind while you're writing it, you know. But I will say I'll have a wee bit, and I suppose a lot in, if you're writing speech, you know, and you're editor or something, say to you, I'm presuming this is just a way of speech. It's not you having this in word out. No, it's just the way it be said, you know, wherever. So bits like that, yeah.
Are you going to be sneaking Yorkshire in then in the next the next book you write?
By that, I don't know, lass. Yeah, if it's set in an area, I try to use a wee bit or a little bit of the local dialect, because it sets the scene, but you don't want to use too much, because it'll turn people off reading it. Because if they don't understand it, I mean, I'm the same. If there's a great long bit in Doric, or if it's a great long bit in any sort of dialect from anywhere, if you don't understand it and you can't get the gist of it, you just tend to block it out. So you can put, like, you can say, oh, it's blowing a hoolie. I hate it when it's as windy as this. So you've actually explained what blowing a hoolie means. And like, you can put, if it's a local lass in Devon, you can put a little bit of the Devon accent. You can talk about, you know, different, what do they call, I can't remember whatever they call the people who've just come down, as snowbirds and all this sort of stuff for when you're in Scotland. So you can put bits in, but I think you've got to not, well, I personally don't go too far, because I know how I feel when I read something that's just got too much of it in it. But I think if you don't put that little bit in, then it takes away from the fact that where the story is. And if you've got, say, somebody in Regency times from Yorkshire who doesn't speak what would have been known as the King's English or the Queen's English, then you've got to have a little bit, because otherwise, if you write it too properly, that's not going to read as it should be. But it's easy just to get away with putting, like, yeah, I'm running, taking the G off the end or something like that, you know, just to sort of try and set the scene and try and make a mental picture of the person that's actually talking or you're trying to describe.
What's been one of the most fun scenes that you've written?
But you're making me snigger now. Lottie Bott getting her dress cut on a nail and showing her knickers, I think, was quite funny. Because I can remember years ago there was a film called The Parent Trap with Hayley Mills, and I'm going back to the original one, so I'm going back to the 50s, and that happened in that film. I can remember at the cinema watching everybody going, and so that when I wrote that, I mean, I did snigger a bit, and then that was in the first book in the series, and then which was called the New Beginnings for Bryony Bennett. And then in the second book, somebody had written a poem about Lottie getting a knickers, showing her knickers and getting a dress cut on a nail and what have you. And I found that was quite fun to write. It is silly things that hit you. Sometimes it might only be a couple of lines, and it just tickles you, because you just think, I can really see that happening, or I really know what that would be like. And it could be something really dead romantic about, you know, you're standing overlooking the sea and the sun's coming down and it's all the reflections on the sea, and you're just thinking, oh, I remember that one day, you know. Or a monkey came up to me once when I was in Barbados, and didn't come right up to me. I was writing, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. I looked up, there's this monkey sitting about 3 foot away, staring at me like that. And the minute I looked up, it went away, and I'm thinking, well, I hadn't got anything to give it, so it was just it went away. So, excuse me, I'm going to blow my nose now. Oh, that's better. Yeah. So it's yeah. I think that in every book you write, there's always one bit that you think that's the bit that I like best, and so often it's not the best bit that somebody else likes best, which is really quite funny. You know, you think, I think that's the best bit I've ever written, and someone, oh, all right, well, I like that bit. So that gives you good insight into how different people like different things, which I think is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you made lots of author friends since you started writing?
Yeah, I've been very lucky, actually. quite a lot of years ago, my children decided they would do gap years. One went to Australia and one went to New Zealand. And although they're different school years, they both happened to be away at the same time. So we sort of both pleaded with our employers and got 4 weeks off to go off out to see them, which was absolutely fantastic. So we went to Australia and went to New Zealand. And there was a Mills and Boon author called Robin Donald. Now, I'll hold my hands up and say I have been a Mills and Boon reader for years. My mum set me off on them when I was about 16. That, Georgette Hare, you read them all. And Robin Donald's books I always liked. And I'd sent her a message. And one of the reasons I wanted to go to New Zealand, apart from the fact my daughter was out there, was her descriptions of the country just made me think this is a place I want to go and see. So when I knew we were going, I sent her a message and just said that. And she came back and said, this is fantastic news, you must come for tea. So we went up to Kerry, where she lived, and I went for tea and had a fantastic chat with her. It was brilliant. And she said to me, you were going to go home and you were going to promise me you were going to try and write a book. And that's really another reason that first book came out, because, so she was probably like the first proper author friend like that. But then there's an amazing Harlequin writer called Marguerite Kay, who's the lady who's writing with the Duchess of with Fergie, for Duchess of York at the moment. And Marguerite and I got together because I'd gone to listen to her do a talk and a helping session in Glasgow, and we became friends. So I miss her because we used to meet up like 3 or 4 times a year. We used to have a lovely, very boozy day in Glasgow, cocktails and something nice to eat and wander around the shops and spend lots of money. And she's been so helpful, telling me where I've gone wrong. So people like that. But there's lots of people who. We all started off at the same time, and we've all got really friendly being writers. And as I say, I find it very difficult. After Doris died, I find it very hard to know what to do. And then but when she was in hospital, she died of cancer, which they didn't discover for a long while. But when she was in hospital, I says, come on, this book that you and I were going to write, we're going to start it now. So she's in hospital typing on her iPad, and I'm at home, and we did a bit, and then she said, I'm finding it harder to type, like, tell me how this book's going to go. So I actually finished it off and sent that off. And that's what got me really back into writing again after that, because I find after Doris gone, I find it really hard to settle into doing it. So that got good. And then Cassie O'Brien, who I write with at the moment, I mean, she's a great help, and we have a good moan to each other when need be, and nag each other. And there's been so many people that have been so helpful, and some of them you've never meet. I went off and met Catherine Weifel in France a couple of years ago, just because I was going past, you must come in. I met her and her husband. My husband and I went for lunch, and excuse me. And where I live now, there is a writers group in Beverley that I've not been to yet, just because I just literally haven't managed to get through there on the days that it's open, but I will do. I'd like to get into that. And then there's Em Taylor, who lives in Scotland. We used to meet up every so often, and she says, no, you're all the way down there, but she's coming down in the summer. There's loads of people that there's a lot of people through Facebook, from all the writing groups on Facebook, but actually getting to meet a lot of people, no, you don't really, because writing's quite a solitary occupation, and because we're all around the world, there's people that I'd love to meet up with there. Is it ever going to happen? I don't know. You hope so, and you hope that next time you go out on holiday somewhere, if we ever get out on holidays again, that we'll be able to meet up with somebody and chat to them. So I've been very lucky. I've had some fantastic help of people who have just sort of encouraged me and said, yeah, you can do it and carry on with it. And I think that's the good thing about writing. I mean, Darcy Berlin, who I've never met in person, but I mean, we've got on really well. And you just know that there are some people that if you're stuck, you can turn around and say, look, I need somebody to rant to, or I need some help, or I can't do this. And they'll put down whatever they're doing. It's all right, come on, let's get on with it, and either on the phone or on like this or whatever. So yeah, it is a very, generally speaking, I wouldn't say it for everybody, but generally speaking, the writers are a very supportive group and do try to help each other.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and my experience says exactly the same as well. So it's lovely, it really is.
I think apart from the fact as well is like most writers don't make much money, let's be totally honest about this. And I think we all know what it's like to struggle and to get your book out there, and we all know what it's like if you don't get any support. I mean, one of the first things I got told was, you will get bad reviews, you will grow a thick skin, or you will never put pen to paper again, and it's true. But you get good reviews as well, and you take the rough with the smooth. And one thing we always say is, you can't please everybody all of the time, so please yourself, and then you'll please somebody else, hopefully.
Yeah. So do you get a lot of feedback from your readers?
It varies. I've got a group on Facebook, and it's called the Ravdor Chicks, which was Raven and Doris, and then Chicks. I don't know where that came from. I think Doris picked that out. And there's a core of people on there who are absolutely fantastic. They're supportive. If I say I've got an ARC, which like, well, no, we're going to buy the book, you know, they'll give me really good feedback. They're honest, but they're not rude or they're not brutal. But they'll say, actually, we don't like this bit because, or we think that bit's fantastic because. But there's nothing nicer when somebody just sort of says, oh, I bought your book the other day. I'd never read one of your books before. I've been and bought another one. And that is so nice, you know, the fact that somebody's actually, or somebody, I even had somebody one day they'd been given an advanced read copy to review, but they liked it so much they went and bought it. And you're thinking, but you've already got it. You didn't have to go and buy it. No, I wanted to because I thought, you know, and I thought, oh, that's lovely. You also get somebody saying, I'll never buy one of your books again. It was rubbish. But I mean, fine, that's your opinion. That's totally your opinion. You are totally, I don't like you for saying it, but you're totally entitled to say it, because I can start a book and think, I can't finish this. You know, I mean, not very often, but sometimes with the best will in the world, you just think this is just not for me. It happens, yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to join the Ravdor Tricks, it's on Facebook. Yeah.
If you're able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend a day with?
That's a really strange one, because somebody once said that to me. I know she's not. I'd love to have spent the day with Golda Meir. You know, she was the Israeli president, and she did write a book, and I just thought that. I really, really admired what she wrote. Miss Reed, who's not a romance author, I don't know if you've ever heard of her. I'm going back a bit. Miss Reed was a school teacher between the wars, and she wrote two series of books called Village School, which was all about one series, and then another one called Thrust Green. And although the books are old-fashioned, her descriptions are fantastic, and I'd have loved to have actually spoken to her to see where she got that from. And another woman called Doreen Tovey, who wrote about Siamese cats, also. I mean, I'm going back. My mum and dad put me onto these more years ago than I dare mention. I loved those. But romance authors, I like some of Stephanie Lawrence's books, but not all of them. I don't hate any of them, but I love Devil's Bride. I think that's probably one of my favourite Regency books ever. So I'd love to chat to her. Nora Roberts, because how the hell does she do it? You know, I mean, and weirdly enough, Anne Cleeves, who writes Vera, because I think I love the way she can dip between Vera and Shetland and get the two different, you know, things. And then obviously some of my friends, but you know, if you're talking about sort of well-known names, I suppose, yeah. Martin Walker, who writes the Bruno books set in the Dordogne, because I love the Dordogne, and I've been to some of the places he's written about, you know. And I think I'd just be interested. I mean, I can't say Marguerite, because I've met Marguerite quite a lot of times, but I'd love to know how people, like, where do you get your ideas from? Because people say that to me, and half the time I've got absolutely no idea. It'd be something ridiculous, like listening to two people on the next table splitting up and discovering they weren't married to each other. They were just having an affair and splitting up. And my husband said to me, if you move your tray any further back, you'll be sitting in their pudding, you know. And I'd love to know where they get their ideas from. I just think it's fascinating to find out how somebody can suddenly write this book, and they've had to have got all these ideas, the starting, the middle, and the finish. Where? You know, are they a plotter? Are they a pantster? Why are they a plotter, or why are they a pantster? Do they dip between the two? You know, you could go on and on and on and on and just sort of chat to them. Yeah. But historical, I mean, I'll hold my hand up. I'm not much of a classics reader. I never had. I got force fed them at school, and it turned me off reading them. And I think that's a shame, but it's how it works for a lot of people, I think, as well.
Yeah. And there's a couple that I'd read again, but most of them that I was made to read, I would never touch. Just the thought of it.
It's the same, isn't it? But I think it just gets you like that, you know. You know, I mean, the first book, going back when I was very small, the first book that I can remember was called Mitten the Kitten. Mitten the kitten with a mitten, Mitten the kitten, your hope. That was his song. And my auntie read it to me when she was pregnant and I was 2. And my mum said, she said at the end to my mum, I wish this baby be born because I'm sick of this bloody Mitten the kitten. Okay, Millie Molly Mandy, you know, I mean, and then you sort of say, and you're reading them to your children, and they go, it's a bit old-fashioned. Well, yes, I know it's old-fashioned. And you just, you know, I just think I love the way, although everything's changed and the way writing seems to have changed, and what's acceptable now wouldn't be acceptable 10 years ago, and what's acceptable in 10 years' time wouldn't be, you know, it's still, you still got the core in all the books. You still have to have a start in the middle and the end and ending. You know, and if it's a romance, you want a happy ever after or a happy for now. And if it's a mystery, you want to be able to solve the mystery. And if it's a crime, you want to know who. You know, there's this thing that runs through them all.
Yeah, no, that's sweet.
Is that your? I can hear something. I don't know if it's my laptop or your telly, but I can hear every so often. I think it must be somebody outside clicking into this. I can hear somebody talking. I don't know. I haven't got anything else on. But
what do you like to do when you're not writing?
Well, I used to say travel, but that's not much traveling going on at the moment. I'm trying to learn how to knit. I'm left-handed. I was taught right-handed, so it's not natural. And if I drop a stitch, I have to find somebody to pick it up for me. Luckily, my next door neighbour's a very good knitter, so I've got somebody here. I used to have someone in Scotland. I've dropped a stitch. You know, crochet. Although I hadn't done it for so long, I had to look up how to crochet again. But I was crocheting the edge around a baby jacket. I like tapestry. Can't do cross stitch anymore. I find it too tiring on the eyes. I'm trying to do a bit of sewing, but I'm not the world's best machinist. But I do mess around. I like walking, but can't walk too far. I've got a dodgy knee. It's getting old. One of these things. But it's lovely walking along the coast and so just going out and about like that. Reading, I can't imagine someone who doesn't like reading. I mean, I've always got a book on the go, often more than one book on the go. I mean, people moan about an e-reader, but seriously, when I got my first e-reader, my husband suddenly said to me, "I've got loads of space in my suitcase. We were going on holiday." I went, he says, "Why?" Because normally you have half of my clothes in there because my suitcase would be full of books. Because I would take a book a day on holiday. You know, that was my idea of, if you're going on a beach holiday or somewhere with the kid, I would have a book a day with me, and that had to be. So that, I think, that's quite interesting. The fact that you know I had to take a book everywhere with me. Paul and I just like sometimes if it's a nice weather, he'll be in the garden and I'll be pooching around, you know, doing this, that, and the other. Loved traveling, learning going to see new places, going back to places you know, because you always find something different that you've missed the time before. But this last year, it's been learning to get a new house. We've moved house, doing the garden, finding what it's like down here, you know. So indoors, yeah, it'd be reading, or I'll be doing tapestry or something like that. Outdoors, it'll be reading or be gardening or just walking. I just like, you know, sort of walking about. Nothing over the top. I'm not particularly adventurous, although I did come down halfway the Great Wall of China on my bum because I lost my bottle. The kids are prancing around like, you know, and I'm going, I think I'll just go down this bit, you know, I'm scared stiff. Yeah, I'm quite happy just to poodle around. I think is a good expression. Yeah. And I've always got a notebook with me because you never know when, you know, an idea might strike. I did nearly get a white van man crash into a lamppost because we were stuck at some traffic lights and they'd been stuck on red, and I sat there and I suddenly had, and it was, so I pulled into the side because I've got this, there was a label. I thought, I must think of this. And I'd been thinking, and I put something on the label. I got back into the car, this white van jumped, and I suddenly said to myself, damn, I forgot to tell him he's got to, I don't know, take his underwear off or something. I can't remember what it was. And this white van went, because I was in a soft top car and I got the lid down, looking outside. He put his window open. You can see him thinking, I better get away from this mad woman. So that was an interesting one. I thought, oh dear.
Yeah, I'd love to have heard him trying to explain that to his insurance company as well. Can you imagine?
This woman in there talking about telling a guy to get his kecks off.
Yeah, but now.
yeah. So yes, like eating out, but not so much now. Obviously, you know, something like that. And also, I now can't eat gluten, so I'm very bit more careful about what we do. But I think just taking each day as it comes at the moment and enjoying it, and just be glad that I still can do things. So I'm still here and I can still go for a walk, or I can read, or whatever, you know, and enjoy it. I think you've got to take each day as it comes, and each day is the first day of the rest of your life, and enjoy it. Yeah. And if I get miserable, shake myself up and tell me to behave myself, or go and eat chocolate.
Yeah, that's always good.
Chocolate and wine works wonders.
Oh. Well, I can't think of any more questions for you unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you about that you want to tell us.
I'll tell you about my latest books.
Yes, that would be
because as I say, I've just started a romantic comedy series for Totally Bound, and it's called Romancer Castle, Romancer being romance in Gaelic. And so it's called Happy Ever, the series is called Happy Ever After at Romancer Castle. The first book's called The Fix Up, and that comes out later on this year. The second book is working in the title of Jan and Tom. I don't know what their story will be. And the third one will be Zach. So it's three people that are all tied up with this castle, and it's their romance stories all set around this castle. I've also got the short story that came out in the Love Token, called The Love Token, which was in the Happy Ever After for Valentine's Day from Totally Bound. That came out yesterday. And that's actually set in Yorkshire, where I live now, and it's all about spies and smugglers and skullduggery and sex. And that, although it won't be part of the series, there is a series that is going to be based on that, if that makes sense. And it's all set around a guy. In the first book, you meet this guy called Jamie Clubley, who could be a smuggler, but we don't know if it's a smuggler. And the next book is about him and the woman he comes in contact with, and then the third book is about her brothers. So it's all tied around here. But because the East Yorkshire coast has so much of it has been lost over the last 3 4 years, there's 2 dozen villages that don't exist anymore because of the way that the cliffs have crumbled and they've been taken off into the sea. They're actually doing a big dig for one just off the Humber at the moment. So that got me interested, because I was walking along the coast and it shows you where all the villages were. And I'm like, there's a story here. So I've got, basically the series is all set around smugglers, and it'll be all smuggling along here. And then Cassie O'Brien and I have got a series with Totally Bound, which the first, and it's called The Scots and the Sassenachs, because it's based with somebody from Scotland and somebody from England. And that's a 3-book series, and we've just finished our second book. We're halfway through writing the third book for that, and that's sort of they're all standalones, but they're intertwined. And then we've got an idea that we're writing ourselves for the summer, which is all set around a cove on the south coast of Devon, and it's all about the history of the cove, but it's basically about 5 friends and 1 mum who set up an enterprise in this cove and what happens with them. So that'll be a series of books, but we're not in any mad hurry to write that. That's just going to be once we've got everything done that we've got to do, that's going to be our play, if you like. So we're going to play around with that and see what happens with those. But apart from that, it's just I'm going to be a grandma in the next 3 weeks, so I'm waiting to see what grandchild I get. Which is why I'm trying to learn how to knit.
Yeah.
But no, I just think I'm very lucky. I'm really lucky that I had the chance to write. I'm really lucky that a publisher accepted me right back at the beginning and let me play around with what I can write, which has shown me what I think my strengths and weaknesses are. And I'm really lucky that my publishers now both let me, to a certain extent, and let me do the same sort of thing, because this rom-coms for Totally Bound is not something that I've written for them before, but they loved it and they accepted it and they want the series. So I just think I'm very, very lucky. And also writing with Cassie, we're writing by ourselves as well as for a publisher. I've slowed down like mad, because now Paul's retired and we've moved house. We've got so many things we can do together. Whereas when you're by yourself, you tend to fill your time in. But I'm enjoying it as much, if not more, because although you just get suddenly say, why have you stopped there? Well, you see that little cove bit down there? Well, if you went around that corner, there's a cave. Now I could have somebody hidden in that cave and nearly get down and going, okay. Or I'll be, we can't remember, we were walking across an island in Hong Kong a few years ago, and I went, you see that track down there? That's where my heroine and hero had to hide from the rain, and Paul went, I don't even want to know anymore. So yeah, very lucky. And and if people, I love it when somebody gets back to me and says they enjoyed my book. I love it if they get back and tell me they didn't, as long as they tell me why. If somebody just says, I hate it, 1 star, well, that's not helping me. It's showing that you didn't enjoy it, but you're not helping me understand what was wrong with it. Well, why you didn't enjoy it. And okay, I might not agree with you, but if you don't tell me why, I haven't got a chance to find out whether I agree with you or not. So is there anybody that wants to, write to me, or I've got a website, it's ravenmcallan.com, so my website, or people who want to just say, yes, I enjoyed it, no, I didn't, what you're writing next. I'm always happy to chat with people, because I think it's important that people know I'm here and a lot of people don't know I'm here. And also, I want people to read my books. I want them to enjoy it, and I want them to tell me what they think was good, what they think was bad. And like one of my readers keeps saying to me, "When are you going to write another book with Athol in?" And I think she says that to me every year, and I'm saying, what else can I write about him? I mean, I've got him married. We've talked about their kid. We've done something. You know, you don't want to get him divorced. No, don't divorce him. I said, well, I don't know what else to write. He's not old enough to be a granddad yet. So she's going to say, sorry, Tina, you're going to have to wait, you know. So thank you for talking to me, and thank you for letting me.
It's been a pleasure. We got there in the end, third time lucky.
Yeah, exactly, a third time lucky. We did really well. I deserve a glass of wine tonight after all of that.
So just remind everyone where they can get your books from and where they can find out more about you.
Right, well, I've got a website, which is ravenmcallan.com. I also am on Facebook as Raven McAllan, or as in the Ravdor Chicks, which is capital RAV, capital DOR Chicks, which is what's set up for myself and Doris O'Connor. So there's that. I always talk about books in there. Totally Bound on their website, Evernight on their website. All my books are on Amazon and Kobo, and you just either search for Raven McAllan. If you want the ones about government sanctioned killers who feed traitors to the pigs, because the pigs will eat them in half an hour, that's Kira Fair. And if you want the first 3 rom-com books, that's Katie Lilly, and they're all on Amazon underneath those names. And hopefully I'll be able to bring my young adult books out again at some point, but at the moment they're not in print, sadly. So, and that's me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well. So take care.